So good afternoon, Coach. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful, thanks. How are you, Coach B?
I am super, and I'm ready. I think we had promised to do relating in relationships, investing in your relationship strategy, how and why you should invest in your relationship and what that means.
Mm,
Okay. So would you
yay.
like to would you like to just start with unpacking what investing in your relationship means and why we should do it?
Okay, perfect. So, hello, everybody, and thank you again for joining us. And please do remember, if you have not, please do subscribe to our channel so that you can receive notifications every time we post new content for you. So, investing in your relationship, what does that mean? Okay, so like most things in life, like almost anything, we need to give our attention and we also need to give our intention to whatever we pursue in life. That
Yes.
includes our relationships. So it's simply that process of giving intention and attention to the success and the well being of your relationship. That's the simplest way I can put it.
Awesome. Just to add to that, for me, I always think of the relationship is a baby, a separate baby. The people in the relationship feed this baby, right? And when you look at babies, every baby starts on liquids before you can move on solids. From there, the baby can chew once they have teeth. So the various stages of the relationship could require different type of nutrition for your type of relationship. So when the individuals who are in that relationship are not aware what the baby needs right now, whether they are having issues, whether it's the fun times, whether it is the growing times, we normally miss it as sometimes lack of love, sometimes lack of alignment. But the truth is, maybe we were feeding liquids to a baby that is now ready for solids, you know? So to always have that
Perfect.
analogy, to have that analogy in your mind that whenever I meet a new partner, this is a baby. As much as we are adults in the relationship, this is a baby. And what are we giving to this baby to help it grow in the direction we want it to grow?
Yes, absolutely, coach. I agree 100%. And that's a beautiful analogy that just makes matters so simple. So it's really a no brainer from this moment on as to what exactly it means and why it's necessary to invest in the relationship because of that awareness. Because the lack of awareness or the unawareness that we sometimes approach our relationships with is actually the reason we have relationship problems. It's just that lack of awareness as to what stage is our relationship and what requires our attention now and what intention should we be setting for ourselves now in the current situation. So more than anything, um, being consciously aware of where you are through investing time and energy and effort and whatever other necessary tools that your relationship success requires, it also allows you to identify where you are now and what's next for you in your relationship as well as for your partner.
Noted, noted. So what would be then the first key elements of investing in your relationship?
I always say, and I am a firm believer in we can only do what we know. We cannot do anything above what we know. So I always say the starting point is always really to learn what you don't know. So get into the habit of learning what you don't know. If ever there's a point in time when you are in doubt, and how will you know that it's time to learn something new? Clarity is power. Whenever you are in doubt, wherever you are unsure, that's
Yeah.
the time that you need to go find out something more. And then the second thing is learning is not enough. We have to actually do what we know because a lot of us know what to do, but we don't do what we know. So the first step is learn what you don't know, and then the second thing is to do what you know.
That's amazing stuff, coach. That in the application lies mastery. In the application of whatever it is that we are willing to learn lies mastery. But then what happens when we think that life should be love and life should be spontaneous? I was asking this lady I was working with on her career development, and I'm asking about the relationship aspect. And I think the answer she gave me was that should happen naturally, that should just take care of itself. And I was, confused as to, we are here making sure that whatever you need for your career growth, you are actually getting the skills, the tools, the techniques to apply so that you get to where you want to be. But when it comes to relationships, there's this thing or notion we have that it should just happen. Is that what movies have sold us? Is that the belief that we have that when it looks like work, we now refuse to do that work because it should just happen? Because sometimes I'm finding that, truthfully, that's the belief people have.
Okay, it is on some level a level of programming that we received.
Mm.
Also, it has to do with that inner knowing, and on some level, communication
Mm.
is majority of communication is nonverbal. And so
Mm.
because of that, as human beings, we know that we are attuned to that majority of our communication is nonverbal.
Yeah.
And so we expect our relationships to be this place where we are able to use this major part of our communication, which is nonverbal. And so we have this expectation, or we not even an expectation, a desire for our relationships to cater for that part of our human experience where our nonverbal communication takes center stage. Because we know that we have the ability and the capacity to have spirit to spirit communication, where it's not our words that are doing the communication, where our emotions do the communication, where our body does the communication. And so our relationships, we have a deep desire to have our relationships be this platform where our non-verbal communication comes out to play.
Yeah.
And so because of this desire and this expectation, a lot of us then want to take the back seat and not put in the effort that is required, in that comes in form of having to think, articulate, and then express
Yeah.
type of situation that is involved with verbal communication, because it's a process to getting the words out of your mouth. So we want the relationships to be less of an effort, where this part of our human experience is able to be, to come and flourish. However, even that in itself, even getting to that part of having that being in sync, having
Mm.
that vibrational communication and being on the same frequency with your partner, that also takes a bit of cultivating as well. Because
Yeah.
we need to sift first. We need to sift first through the programming
Mm.
in order for us to get to that level of being in sync and being on the same wavelength. Because we get together on the basis of our programming, on the basis of our beliefs. And so, in order for us to get to that spirit to spirit, non-verbal communication, where we are in sync, where we get each other on
Yeah.
that deep, intimate level, we need to work through and filter through the
The
programming and the
programs.
conditioning. And so it really
Mm.
just comes from, it really just comes from that part of our human experience that we all have, that we want to have this non-verbal part of ourselves being able to freely express itself.
Super. And just for someone who's wondering this programming, where it comes from, just look at where you were raised and who raised you and what was the circumstance around that, either environment or situation. Did you have both parents around? And if you did not have both parents around, which is what we're seeing normally in terms of our social landscape, now that you're in a relationship, who do you become? How do you embody this new type of architecture that is a relationship when you have never witnessed it? So all of us have some form of program, and when we are not being defensive about it, we can truthfully look at our program and understand where it either makes us not see certain things about ourselves, meaning be biased, or when it makes us defend certain things about ourselves, meaning we go out to look for either the opposite or exactly what we are. that way creating conflict now in our relationship. I remember there was an uproar on one of the social media posts about a guy who's saying he will never marry a girl who comes from a single mother household, because where would she have witnessed what being in a relationship mean, what being with a partner means? And that alone is already a bias that person has towards a person who comes from a single mother or father household. So our programs are exactly that. So being aware of our programs is very, very important. Coach, you were saying something?
And just I was just saying, and just also to add on to that, because also oftentimes we want to camouflage and hide our insecurities, because those decisions of either being defiant or either replicating our situations and our upbringing and our circumstances also come from that sense of inferiority and insecurity. So in order to move away from self-judgment and self-criticism and continuing in a sense of and developing and cultivating not being enough and wanting to be completed by our partners, we also need to recognize that in whatever it is, people, is the funniest thing. A lot of people think and believe that they do not know how to practice self-love. And I always say nobody does not know how to practice self-love. The mere fact that you feel the need to defend yourself and the need to do everything that you do to protect yourself, you are practicing self-love. So it's also being aware and having that consciousness that whatever your actions are, you are acting in self-love. It may be misguided self-love that comes forth and is pushed forth by fear, but at the end of the day, it is self-love in whatever capacity that you are able to express it.
No, that's fair. So then, Coach, just to wrap up, in terms of investing in relationships, normally all of us go look for help when there is tension. Oh, when there is, I'm leaving you. So I just learned working with someone that every year, the partner says, every year, this person tells me they're leaving. And I'm like, actually, evidence has shown us that every year you're not leaving. So could we just commit to doing the work so that we are not threatening with, I'm leaving, and continuously live in the same circumstance that the following year, we're saying exactly the same thing. So before we move into times when there's hardship and there's tension, what can we do on a regular basis on whatever interval that we invest in our relationships?
Okay. So everything you do and everything any of us do on earth, our number one priority should be our level of consciousness.
Yeah.
So your level of awareness all the time, be fully aware. And then how do you get to that? Is being present. So number one, be present, be aware of your circumstances, be aware of your well-being, your holistic well-being, and be aware of the beliefs. And how do you know when you are moving away from what it is that keeps you grounded and centered? Your emotions. Your emotions are your guidance system. Your emotions are going to be the road signs, so to speak. So immediately when you feel like you are tipping to the other side of the scale of love, so always make love your center place. Immediately when you feel you are moving away from that place of love, from that place of connection, know that something needs to be done. Something is calling for your attention. Don't wait until you've left the port. Immediately when you feel the wind gushing, because the signals will be there. Immediately when you feel it, get off. Like literally in business, we've been, especially during the pandemic, everybody's been talking about pivoting. So pivot. So pivot in that moment, pivot and change, release what needs to be released. And that's part of investing. Release what needs to be released, learn what needs to be learned, feed off whatever it is that's going to now nourish you, and let go of what has passed its due date and its expiry date, in terms of, because what served you, like you were saying, What served you when you were feeding on liquids is not going to serve you when you need to
No.
feed on solids.
No, definitely not. Thanks, Coach, for the time. As I'm thinking in terms of investing in relationships, I think the next thing to also look into is key strategies to manage conflict. Because in our daily life, we are managing some form of conflict. However, in relationships, because there's this idea of love, some of us don't know how to communicate well, don't know how to articulate ourselves well. Sometimes we're not even aware of what you just said now in terms of raising our own consciousness first, so that we can be able to communicate that with our partners as we evolve. So I'm then thinking of that managing conflict or conflict strategies in order to be able to have conversations that move the relationship forward.
Definitely. We can tackle that next time.
Thank you, Coach.
Alrighty, then.